author and poet Horace Mungin wants the younger generation to know about the bebop music generation. And that's why he's holding a modern bebop review, a musical performance at Allen University's Chappelle Auditorium this coming Sunday, February 24th. I sit down one-on-one with Horace for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play Store.
Horace Mungin.
Hi, how you doing, Quintin? Good seeing you again.
Likewise. It's so good to see you. I know that just recently you were at Allen University in Columbia because you were celebrating Black History through music. Obviously, you're a notable author and poet. What is it like for you to celebrate Black History through music?
Well, this particular time was at the invitation of Dr. Alvoy Bryant and Professor Kenneth Green of the music department at Allen. Maybe about 2 years ago, I was up at Allen to speak to the English class.
Right.
So while I was writing my book, Swing, Hard Bop, Bop, and Bebop, when I was near finished, I sent out a press release, and of course, Allen was on my list. So the director of the English department was impressed with my press release and got in touch with me, called me and asked me if I'd like to meet with the people at the music department, Dr. Alvoy, and maybe we could discuss making a production out of my book. They was very enthusiastic about it. So over the course of, from last May, over the course of the last 6 or 7 months, we were meeting what do you call that on iPhone?
FaceTime.
FaceTime. We were meeting FaceTime. I've gone up to Columbia a couple of times. We have an in-person meeting. Then we were meeting FaceTime to plan what's called Mantika, Modern Bebop Review. And so the school was celebrating Black History all this month, and they had the Founders Day too. So I was invited to come up and speak and promote our play that's going to debut on the 24th, this Sunday coming.
And what do you want the headline to be for this particular event? Mantika, Modern Bebop Review.
The beginning of a revival of bebop music. That's my goal, sort of. That's my mission, is to inform a younger generation about the fabulous music that was called bebop, that was created during the 1940s and 50s and played by some of the greatest jazz musicians that's ever lived.
Which one of those musicians describe you these days?
Describe me? That's a hard one. That's a very hard one. I don't know. I didn't want to be a musician, but when I was doing my early teens, I tried to play music. I played the flute. And we had a neighborhood band. And I lived in the same neighborhood as Thelonious Monk, so he's always been a person that we looked up to when you talk about music, particularly, you know. Now, of the bebop musicians, Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie are the ones who are most credited with the invention of bebop. Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk are also some of the creators. But of those people, I'd like to be Dizzy, if anything, because he was he had the most the solid life of all the jazz musicians. They were very creative, but very troubled, lived very troubled lives, most of them, especially Charlie Parker.
Wow. You talk about the younger generation that we're currently living in. What do you want us to know about the 40s and 50s music right now?
Well, I'd like for you to listen to it and to enjoy it and study it and say, wow, these guys, they invented something, you know, that other music developed from. The whole chain of music, one comes from the other. I got a theory about the origin of black music. The first sounds made in African American music was made by the slaves on the slave ships. First slaves on the first slave ships to Gaston here in Charleston.
Wow.
And that sound developed into field hollers and spirituals, and from there that developed into blues and jazz developed into R&B, and it went on to hip hop. You know, it just kept developing, kept going, and it'll keep going. We weren't able to when we came over here, when we were brought over here, we weren't able to learn to read and write to tell our story. So we had to somehow have some kind of mechanism by which to keep our history and to tell our story, the story of our survival here in this country. And music was the thing. I've got a poem that's in this book that I use, it's in the play also, that talks about my theory of the origin of our music. If you'd like the audience to hear it, I'd like to read it. It's called A History of New Music in America. The first Africans upon the first slave ships destined for the Americas sensed the coming of a great and lasting catastrophe. They had nothing that would protect and fortify them from the coming centuries of bondage and tyranny. So they sent out an exalted wail, beseeching God's mercy. God looked down on them and saw that they had nothing. They were naked and in chains. God, in His singular wisdom, took the very sound of their lament and turned it into their shield and their weapon. And today we call that sound music. It is those majestic wails, those cries of despair, that music in its ever-changing forms from field holler to hip-hop that has nourished our spirits through the centuries. A sound that spoke directly to on high for substance to keep the spirit unyielding to the horrors of shackled burdens. Feeble and conquered, music became our sacred shield and our consecrated weapon. And this poem sort of explains my theory, as I've mentioned to you before, that the first sounds of African American music was uttered by African slaves on these slave ships. Imagine with me for a moment the sounds that must have come from the cargo holds of these slave ships. Africans were chained one next to the other with not even enough room to remain human. They were Ibu and Mandinkas, all of a different tongue, but the sound emanated from them, and this is the sound that went to plantations of the South and developed into field hollers.
You talked a lot about God in that particular poem. It might be a silly question, but how does God meet new music now?
The same way God meets all music, I guess. Music doesn't change for God. So this is my theory, I guess. God knows the beginning of music and He knows the end of music. So music is one continuum, you know.
Yes, indeed. And earlier you talked to me about your mission as far as the particular event that's going on at Allen on Sunday. What is next? What are you on a mission to do next?
Well, I want to stick with this theory here for a while because I really would like to get young people interested in bebop music, the bebop lifestyle of the 40s and 50s. The bebop was such an important development in black music. It had its own dress code. It had its own lingo. You know, one popular bebop phrase back in the days was "Hey Baba Reba."
Yes,
You know,
yes.
This was made popular by band leader. I can't think of his name.
Oh, I understand.
But played the hydrophone.
Right.
And so I like for younger people to immerse themselves in the bebop culture and appreciate the great artists that were there during that period. There were a lot of them. Bud Powell and Thelonious Smoke and Miles Davis came at the end of the bebop era. And of course Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, who's is a South Carolinian.
Right.
Yeah.
What else should young people immerse themselves in when it comes to music right now?
Well, of course, they're going to always immerse themselves in the current music. They're going to listen to what they're listening to currently. But I like all music. I've always loved music. You go to I got LPs from the 50s and 60s, that I brought up when I was in the Army. I was in Germany and I bought LPs. Y'all call them vinyl,
Right.
the big records. I got maybe a couple of hundred of those, mostly jazz, but R&B and gospel,
Oh.
And so I'd like young people to get the feel for music that I have. And just don't like the music of your generation. Try to enjoy it all,
Yes, indeed. I gotta go back to your future. I know you were on a mission to try to get us to learn about the bebop culture.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to write a book about your life and your future, what would that title be?
He kept on trucking. I've been sort of like on the same mission all my adult life, and that is basically to stay awoke to what's going on and to nudge those who may not be awoke. So my mission, the mission for jazz, that's encompassed in my larger mission, is to do what I can to free black minds.
You say stay awoke. What are those issues that are keeping you awake right now?
Oh, there's lots of them. In fact, there's so many of them, and they're so encompassing that it's almost putting me to sleep. The things that are going on television, on the news today, And so I'm trying to withdraw from some of it because it's just all coming to a head now, and we know where it's headed, I think.
Wow. Well, author and poet Horace Mungin. Horace, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise.